put the card bases away. All right, so we're making a mini envelope card. We need mini envelopes. In here you'll find a stack. I've included some white ones to practice on. And then there's a variety of cardstock and pattern papers. For the purposes of demonstration, I'm going to be using Craft, which is brown. That's what this is. Because my entire inventory is in brown. My inventory book, everything needs to be neutral colors so that it doesn't affect your color decisions when you're working on a project. Okay, so first things first, you gotta make your envelopes. Now these are also scored. There's little lines, and you want to be able to, when you look at it and you can see the lines, that's the top. It's kind of like pretty side up. And so you're going, I don't even know if that made sense. Whatever. Okay, so in any case, the score lines, that's the pretty side. So if you're going to fold it, you're going to fold, I guess, away from those score lines. And they're relatively easy. You can, I mean, once you start to bend it, you can kind of feel where it is. And I would recommend, based on the last one, that just while you're doing it, just kind of wiggle this a little bit to get that, make sure that that little slit is open. Now, on the Jennifer McGuire video, she folded these separately. I actually found that the score lines on the sides are not as deep as the top. The top is relatively easy, but the sides, you kind of get, it tends to go wonky. So what I've been doing is folding it in and then folding the sides, and that worked a lot better. Okay, now in the end it's going to, the sides go in and these go like so. Now they also use, next tool, or she uses a bone folder. I've got two styles here for you, and we don't know why they call them bone fold. Presumably at some point they were made out of bone. I don't know. But, by the way, almost all Craft stuff comes in packaging that just has a little adhesive here. You can put it back and forth. But if it's cards or anything else that's, you know, if there's something in there that you don't want to get onto sticky, be careful when you open these. Okay, these are just personal preference as to which you like to use, so just try both. But the point of these is to be able to make a fold very crisp. So they work either way. So when you see her going over it with a bone fold with this weird white thing, that's what she's doing. It just makes the crease kind of like perfect, and it'll make it lay more flat. This is also what you're going to use when you fold a card base. In order to get a nice crisp line, you line up the sides and you go over it like so. Okay, so there are your bone folders. I think I'm going to stick with this one because that's what I'm used to. I have not really tried this type before. You'll have to let me know what you think of that. All right, so we've put together an envelope. Flap on the outside. Okay, now what you also have in here are two ways to do your closures. The first is to use a heart like this one, and I have included a variety of sizes. I assume you're not going to need the tiny ones, but I went ahead, this is from a die that cuts out all of these at once, so I thought I would go ahead and give you the small ones because later on you can use the ink that I gave you to make those into embellishments. I assume the large one's going to be too big. You'll probably end up using either the small, medium, or large. For mine, I went ahead and used the small, although I'm pretty sure, looking at the video, if you want to match the size of the video, you're going to want to go with the medium, but there was more of these available, so for my samples, I went ahead and used the small. You can try whichever ones you like. Now, the question is, so here's mine. Now, oh, the other way to close it was the string, and I've included a variety of colors of little twine stuff so that you can choose what you'd like to use. or do one of both or whatever. Now, if you're going to ink the pattern paper doesn't need to be inked, but if you wanted to ink the solid ones, you're going to need to do that before you put the enclosure on. So what we've included for that, I included the ink and the ink blending tool that she uses in the video. However, I'm not sure that this is going to work all that well for the size. She's really good at this. So what I've also included is a sponge dauber, which looks like this. And it's the same concept. It's just this gives you more control because it's smaller. So let's just go ahead and try both and see which one works. Now I tried to include the colors that I kind of thought would go with the cardstock that I gave you. But you just pick whichever one you like. And one thing about using the palette is that you can try out the inks and you can see what it is. I know what ink colors they are, so, and I'm about to use brown, so I don't really need to do that. Let me go ahead and grab my brown. I did put a brown in yours, however, with this one, I think I'd rather use which photo. And, okay, so let's go ahead and try the inking the way that she did it, which was to unfold it. Now, this is Distress ink. It's a water-based dye ink. And water-based is good. That means that you can wipe it up with water and it will not stain your hands too badly. I usually keep a baby wipe on hand for that purpose, or a microfiber towel, whatever works. Paper towel will work too. Okay, so the way that this ink blending tool works with the ink is you tap it on there and then you kind of smoosh it around on a non-stick surface. So in your case, it will be the Create Matte. And on here, you won't be able to see that I have anything. Maybe I should do that on yours just to be able to show you. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but now there's ink on there. So what she did is you want to kind of brush or rub it over the edges from front to back, just very lightly. I think she did. Now you don't need to do the sides of it because that'll be on the inside, and I believe, let's see the edges. And I can already tell I'm getting it on my hands. This is a little bit big for such a small envelope. Put this in. And then I think she also went around the edges. So I'm just holding it as an angle and I'm just kind of letting it hit the sides. The angle of the tool will determine how far in that ink goes. So if you're not seeing as much of it as you would like, just tilt it a little bit more and you'll get more on there. And I'm already getting all over my hands. Okay, so it works. This works. However, I'm going to go ahead and try it with the sponge dauber as well and see if maybe that goes a little easier. So again, I'm going to put the score lines that I can see clearly. And you can also tell this side of the paper looks a little mushed because when it goes through the machine. Anyway, I'm going to look for the score lines and then I'm going to flip it over. And go ahead and start folding. Use the bone folder. All right. Now the sponge dauber is roughly the same concept. And of course I grabbed it and now I can't find it. Where'd it go? Oh, here we go. Okay, there's two ways that you can use a sponge dauber. Some people like to hold it like this, or you can stick your finger in it. It's totally personal preference. I have a tendency to stick my finger in it because I don't know, it's just what I do. Okay, so now keep in mind when you have a fresh sponge. Same with this. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you how to take this on and off. If you put your finger, you can use one of these blending tools for multiple colors. You can just take off the foam. If you put your finger in between the Velcro, the black and the white, not this black and white, that's kind of hard. I wish they would. Anyway, you can see where the rough Velcro is. Make sure your finger's in there. If you pull on this, if you pull on the foam part, you can yank it off of this, and you don't want to do that. And these you can just wash with water, a little soap and water, you know, just soap a little bit and water, dry it. I tend to smush it in a paper towel to dry it. But when it's new, you have to put more ink on it to saturate it. Okay, so I'm going to tap my sponge over on here. Oh, and yeah, see, I've got some. All right, so let's try it this way. And this is the same concept. I'm just going from front to back. I feel like this is getting a little darker, easier. Well, I feel like I have more control. So this is probably just going to end up being personal preference. But there's a ton of stuff that you can use the be able to use the ink blending tools for, so I thought it was prudent to give you both. Okay, when I get to the edges, I realize that I sometimes will just go back and forth over it at an angle. Again, personal preference. Okay. Well, both worked. I think that's just going to be a matter of what feels more comfortable. All right, and this should just wipe off. All right, I'm going to, because I've got two slick surfaces on top of each other, I'm going to go ahead and just use my mat because this is going to slide a lot. If you have a slick surface, you can always stick some painter's tape on the back of it to kind of hold this down if that becomes annoying. It won't hurt it.